whatever you wind up doing is exactly what you should be doing.
And I have not behaved one single day of my life. Not one day of my life have I behaved, and I am fine.
I need your help. I can't tell you what it is. You can never ask me about it later, and we're going to hurt some people.
Whose car are we going to take?
On the Nikki Medoro Show live starting at noon weekdays right here on YouTube, or of course anytime you want to, because YouTube is always around. I want to say thank you first off to our founding sponsor, Steve Moskowitz. 888 tax deal. MoskowitzLLP.com is the guy to call. It's tax season. Get any sort of tax help you need, ERC, accounting, HR. Steve can help you out. Also, click that thumbs up button. Before we start the show, we'll remind you throughout the show, YouTube loves it. It helps expand our show to new eyeballs, which is what we need. And I just appreciate each and every one of you who's waiting in the chat room before the show even starts. But please remember to click that thumbs up button. Of course, our Patreon is live. I have been so touched by the number of people who have been emailing me and upping their Patreon donations. So if you want to join our Patreon, just go to TheNikkiMedoroShow.com. TheNikkiMedoroShow.com is where you do that. And you can, you can subscribe and be a monthly subscriber for any amount you want to. We'll take it all. This is a crowd-sourced show, as we love to say. So any amount that you can, we appreciate. Of course, the Super Chat is live. You could donate during the show or even during the replay. And of course, you can pick up some merchandise at TheNikkiMedoroShop.com. Let me show one quick picture again of Raymond, who was in Tahoe. It's friggin' cold. Gonna get cold this week. Apparently not as cold when he took this picture. I think this was last weekend, wearing the Nikki Medoro Show t-shirt. So thank you to all of you. And again, if you pick something up, send us a pic and we'll show it during the show. All right, we have a great show coming up in just a moment. My good friend Chip Franklin will be joining us. We'll talk a little bit of politics. George Santos, pardon me, the lying liar that he is, admits it. He's talking to Piers Morgan, who I also can't really stand, but you have to give it up for Piers Morgan to, really call Santos out and make him basically call himself a terrible liar. So I'll talk to Chip in just a moment. We'll talk about Bernie Sanders, who, you could argue he's perpetually angry or upset at his fellow colleagues. But he was on Face the Nation and kind of talking about his new book about being angry about capitalism. And that's what it's basically called, too. It's okay to be angry about capitalism. It's not anti-American. And there's a lot of things that Bernie Sanders says we should be mad about. Nikki Haley still getting some fallout from that call for a competency test. And we'll hear what Bernie Sanders says about that as well. He was on with Stephen Colbert. When we're talking about the age of people entering politics, when they should retire and who should take their place. For instance, Congresswoman Barbara Lee announcing that she wants to run for outgoing retiring Senator Diane Feinstein's seat. Barbara Lee, very competent politician, should her age matter. So we'll get all into that. More stories about ChatGPT. There was a reporter that wrote a book. I think a couple of people are doing that. Stanford blaming inflation for rising tuition, if you want to buy that. And speaking of schools, a book banning meeting is coming to a Bay Area school district. So we will get into that as well. But first, right now, let's talk some politics and welcome my good friend, Chip Franklin. Hello, my friend.
Hello, Nikki Medoro. I should have worn my shirt and had my coffee mug. They're downstairs. I failed you. Yeah. But,
I'm not even drinking. I'm not even.
My advanced age. So
there you go. I know you're getting up there. I don't know if you can have the microphone anymore. We'll get into the ageism in just a moment. Did you see this interview with George Santos and Piers Morgan? It's a bit insane.
Well, he's obviously mentally ill. I'm serious. Which one? I know which one. But Santos is and you wonder just how long. how long that can last, before they have to do something. But I think forever now. I
Yeah,
mean,
they're not going to let him give up a seat.
After Marjorie Taylor Greene basically, calls for a civil war, not basically, she did. She calls for a civil war. Santos looks relatively normal, as long as she's there and Beaufort and Gates and others, I mean, it's open season on crazy. And there's just, it's like a shooting in a circle. There's really no way to stop Santos when you don't have the majority in the House. And I'm not sure if the Democrats had the majority, but they can make it happen now. It's that strange. He's going to probably.
Sad.
Yeah.
That's really sad. I want to play some sound. Now, again, this is George Santos on with Piers Morgan. First off, this is Piers basically asking Santos, are you worried about the lying? Here it is.
You never got a master's in business at New York University.
No, like I said, no.
Right. I mean, again, did you not think people would find this out?
Piers, not after
You're not running to be like a reality TV star.
No, I understand.
Right? If you were going on Celebrity Apprentice, which I went on, right, it doesn't matter. You can embellish stuff about yourself. Nobody cares, right? But to run for Congress of the United States and to just tell blatant lies about even your academic record, I'm just struck, not necessarily that a politician would lie, but that you would think no one would find out.
Well, I'll humor you this. I ran in 2020 for the same exact seat for Congress, and I got away with it then, and I guess...
Right. Well, that's honest.
Yeah. Stupid.
So you thought, actually, they're not going to find out?
No, I didn't think so.
By the way, Nikki, they're not really pixelated. That's how they really look.
I mean, but can you imagine? He just basically said it. He's like, well, I got away with the one.
He said, F you, I'm going to do what I want, and you can't stop me. It's exactly what he said.
And they won't stop him. I mean, the GOP knows that he lies. I mean, Mitt Romney, you have to give credit where credit is due at the State of the Union, called him out, said you should be ashamed of yourself. But there's a difference between calling somebody out and actually removing him from office.
Every one of those SOBs that allowed Trump to go through 4 years of the lies and then the 2 years after with the big lie, including Romney. Romney could have spoken up a lot more. Same with Cheney, all of them. They voted with him and they pretended he crossed some sort of line. He came down that elevator. He was insane. It's just as insane as he is now. Nothing's changed. The Republican Party is so deep in a mess. I don't know how they escape. I really don't. I mean, I don't see them continuing as a party in the next 3 or 4 years. There's going to be splinter factions. And, the Democrats, of course, find a way to, fumble on the 1 yard line every time, and it was Santos. It's interesting. If you look at, you mentioned age, and I think it's important, though, to talk about, like with Kamala Harris, who's obviously not ready to run for the presidency. And I think that's one of the reasons why Biden feels like he does. I think that, Biden's a stud, by the way. When Haley came out and called for the mental competency test. And then Trump retweeted yesterday that you also have to have a physical fitness test.
Yeah, I saw that too. He passed that.
The irony of that guy. That guy needs CPR after a bowel movement. Okay, this is not a guy that is going to be moving forward physically. I mean, he's peaked a long time ago. So, I mean, if you look at all these, the Democrats, like with Schiff should win Feinstein's seat.
You think so? I want Katie Porter to win.
Well, I mean, right now, I'm just trying to figure out who's going to run in 2024 because Biden is great, but I know it's unfair to ask him to do it again. He's only doing it until somebody shows up that can beat Trump.
Right, exactly.
He doesn't care. He's 80 years old. I mean, he wants to hang out with his grandkids, and it's not a power trip for him. He's been doing it for 50 years.
I know.
50 years.
Insane. It's insane.
So.
But if it's not Kamala Harris, who's going to really challenge him? I mean, again, no one stepped forward.
White House. I mean, there are other people out there. Tim Kaine is it was a bad vice presidential candidate, but that's a crappy gig being a vice president. I mean, there are people out there. I think what has to happen is that we have to see. I mean, DeSantis. You got DeSantis, who is the governor of Florida, which sounds impressive until you realize I just said Florida. You look at these guys. Nikki Haley, the strongest thing she's come out with saying is that she hits people with her high heel shoes.
I know we're going to hear that a million times. It's going to get old.
And Pompeo and Pence and Christie, forget about it. So I mean, they're not in actually good shape. To me, right now, Trump is is the front runner. And we'll see how DeSantis works outside of Florida, but I'm not sure he will. I mean, Trump has these crazy people all over the country. I don't know if you saw the other day, he was leaving Mar-a-Lago. There were like 500 people out there, just insane, screaming for him, and just, I look at it, what Haley's saying and about the competency level and stuff like that. I mean, for most of these guys, they can operate up into their 70s. I have no problem with that at all. Biden has that slight speech impediment, which is,
which he's dealing with, and I think he's fine, know?
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, between Santos and where this whole thing leads, as we move forward, right now, I'm just worried about keeping the Senate and maybe getting the House back. And it'd be great to get all three again. But right now,
doesn't look like it.
No.
Doesn't look like it. I mean, and it's just, it's scary what the GOP is willing to put up with. I mean, yesterday we talked about this a lot. Marjorie Taylor Greene calling for that national divorce, the most anti-American thing I could have ever heard somebody literally say and double down on. There is something within the Republican Party where they're incapable of calling out hateful rhetoric, anti-American rhetoric, and yet love to drape themselves in the American flag as if they're still the grand old party, which they're not. It's sad.
Yeah. Marjorie Taylor Greene, though, is an interesting abomination. I mean, she is, seriously, I call her grunt muscle just to me, because she represents everything that is at the very base level of wrong. I mean, her ideology is all rooted in fear and I obviously, she's right now jockeying. Her and Carrie Lake and Sarah Palin are all jockeying to be Trump's running mate, and he's going to probably pick a woman. It'll be one of those three women.
I hope they like to be grabbed by the pee. Jesus.
It'll probably be Carrie Lake. Who's
God
crazy.
An S-show. I mean, she's ridiculous. She's absolutely, and now she's turning on DeSantis.
Lake is?
Yeah, Carrie Lake is turning on him, even though she was, she loved to kiss his butt. One of our viewers, Lori, writes, I suspect Biden would also like to try to finish his agenda. On that note, I want to play you a little bit more sound. Bernie Sanders was on with Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan. And he was talking about whether or not Biden is truly a progressive to get those younger voters, to get those more progressive and younger lawmakers.
The American Rescue Plan that we passed early in his agenda in the midst of the terrible pandemic, the economic collapse, was in fact one of the most significant pieces of legislation for the working class of this country in the modern history of America. Build Back Better would have been transformational. It would have finally addressed the crises that the working class of this country has faced for decades, revolutionized childcare, revolutionized healthcare, dealt boldly with climate change, raised wages. I mean, it would have done a whole lot.
But the votes weren't there.
We got 0 Republican support, and 2 Democrats decided not to support it.
That says a lot.
Was that Manchin and Sinema? Were they the 2 Democrats in that voted against that? I think it was.
I think it was. They were always kind of the holdouts, right? During that whole entire thing. And yeah, if you can't get your entire party to rally behind something as transformational as Bernie Sanders says, are you really working for all Americans, especially this younger generation that's getting screwed, Chip? I mean, I worry about my children being able to afford a home. College education here in California is getting a bit better because we're California. In some community colleges, first 2 years are free. That's helpful. But there's serious problems. Climate change, all of these things are just piling up as the older, and I'm not trying to be ageist here, but as the older politicians twiddle their thumbs and bicker about BS. And I don't know if we're going to be able to maintain the young voting base if we don't start making some real substantial change in this country.
Well, this is a longer conversation, obviously, if you're talking about, but I can actually sell progressive policies to conservatives because I mean, even, go back and read Adam Smith. Anybody that's never read Wealth of Nations, it's incredibly well written. And the whole idea behind it is that if you allow business to grow unfettered, then it will, you'll have more competition. They'll create more demand. Other people will come in for that demand. All that extra demand will push the prices back down. The problem is and we saw this, the monopolistic attitudes of many of these corporations to hurt other people. Look at Facebook buying Instagram is a great example, right? They have the ability to do it and they shut them down and they can control it then. So there have to be antitrust laws, So in other words, you have to be able to stop major corporations from controlling the market, and thus, and look now in pharmaceutical is a perfect example, right? We have no idea what first of all, I have no idea how much they're spending to make these drugs, which I understand is a part of their cost.
It's a business.
But all this stuff, if in fact they're going to be protected like they are by owning politicians in Washington, then we should know. There's really reasonable stuff. But I guess social media is another one. Like, you can go down this list. You can say, what does a progressive policy mean? And I say, if you look at a progressive policy up close, it's good for the consumer. And the consumer's the guy that buys your stuff. Trump gave corporations a tax break from 35% to 21%. That's costing us trillions of dollars every couple years in revenue that could be going for infrastructure, could be going for a million things. And again, part of it is we have this river and no bridge across it between the two parties.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're not that far apart when you look at this stuff and you take the time and examine economic policies. Trump didn't understand macroeconomics. Janet Yellen, the former head of the Fed, said so a bunch of times. They tried to explain it to him, and he would do a micro, but micro is not the same as macro because it's an international world now. That's what led, those planes coming out of Hunan, that's what caused the spread. When by the time we discovered the virus, it was already in London coming into New York. That's how fast the world moves. And you have to have a policy that can deal with all of that. Do we continue to buy iPhones that are built on slave labor? I got one right here, right? So we have to add all that in and ask ourselves, what's happening with Ukraine right now, with Biden? I'm really proud of him.
Good. I'm glad you just brought that up because there's somebody in the comments that is saying that Biden in Ukraine for President's Day. Really? Do you have a problem with something like that? I think that it was a show of support, obviously Western support. Ukraine we're giving Ukraine a ton of money. I hope the damn president is paying attention to it.
Well, I think that, again, Ukraine, if you go back and look, when Ukraine emerged out of the Soviet breakup in the early 90s, who was one of the most supportive people in that was? Joe Biden. Joe, if you go back and look on his record, he stood up, he bugged the crap out of Clinton all the time to support them more. We created NATO. We should have included the new Russia into NATO. That was a mistake. I think that, to find a way, look, it's the same with Mexico, Nikki. The answer for illegal crossings is to make it so good down there they don't want to come here, to help them with their economies. It's the same with Eastern Europe. It's the same with Russia. Russians hate us because of they only play they play. What's big in Russia is the Tucker Carlson show. They show it at night. No, seriously, when he talks about Biden and he talks, he trashes our support for Ukraine, which he does again and again, along with, Green and other Republicans. The bottom line is that, these are people and we are a nation of immigrants and we have to support our allies. If we stop supporting allies, will there be a nuclear war? No, there's not going to be a nuclear war. And everybody knows that. So. No.
Well, what do you think? You were just mentioning Tucker Carlson being popular in Russia. What do you think about him getting McCarthy giving him the January 6th tapes? I don't know why McCarthy isn't being called out for just not, if you want to release all 41,000 hours, fine. But to just give it to Fox News when a breath ago, they were being called out for straight up lying about the Dominion voting systems. That just seems criminal.
Well, two things on that. Number one, I agree with you. It seems wrong to do it to one network. The second part is that, the January 6th committee went through all that. There's no surprises there. They can cherry pick.
But they were saying that the concern that a lot of them have is if you give every single hour of those tapes, now you know where the lawmakers are hiding. The layout of the building, all of these kind of security issues. Now Tucker Carlson is privy to, and he can tell anybody, and he can make.
If we're worrying about another insurrection, then that's a whole nother issue, right? If we're really worrying, I'm pretty sure that what happened on January 6, 2021 will never happen again simply because of the extra security. That's, so, but good point. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, Benny Thompson, of course, who of course was on the January 6th committee. He was the ranking Democrat. Yeah, the chairman. He said it's hard to overstate the potential security risks if this material were to be used irresponsibly. If McCarthy has indeed granted Tucker Carlson, a Fox host who routinely spreads misinformation and Putin's poisonous propaganda, and his producers access to the sensitive footage, he owes the American people an explanation of why he has done so and what steps he's taken to address the significant security concerns at stake. McCarthy disappoints with every step he takes. Not that I ever thought he was going to be a good House Speaker, but the fact that he is giving it to a quote unquote news agency that has been found to lie about something so important that led to January 6th, it's mind-blowing to me, Chip.
Well, and his district includes Bakersfield, which has 8% unemployment, average income of under $50,000, and also violent crime stats that equal South Central LA and other places. So yeah, he's a horrible representative for his region. And I my gut is that Tucker Carlson is probably the Tucker Carlson we saw in the background calling Trump a demonic force, and he plays the game for dollars. So I don't think that Murdoch or anybody else at Fox will put these in dangerous hands. That said, these are, he's had Alex Jones on his show before. So
I know. It blows my mind. So how optimistic are you that we're going to keep the White House at the very least in 2024?
I have no idea. I mean, I look at states. I look at the states that that come into play now, and I wonder, without the Trumpian sort of presence, even if he runs, it's that part's gone. I look at some states, like Arizona, I think, which would, the fact that Lake lost and others that I don't think they like that image that they have. I think Pennsylvania and Michigan will be stronger. I'd love to see Governor Whitmer run.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if she wants to. There are other people too that, the senator from, I think it's at Ohio. Is it White House? Is his name? Sheldon?
Oh, White House. Yeah. Sheldon White House.
But I don't think he wants to run. I don't blame anybody for not wanting to run.
Not in this political climate. I mean, it's frightening what it's gotten to. But
did you read Obama's book? Not Michelle's, but the Obama book. Yeah, it's just in the whole book. It's all about Michelle giving him crap for running for president.
We know that story. It's not, and he ran at a different time. And I always mention, when Obama first ran, he was kind of that Twitter president. He really engaged the young voters. Wow, have things changed since then to now. And I don't know if it's going to get better in 2024. Yeah. I just hope we don't see a repeat of what we saw during the last election. But tell people where to find you, Chip. People love you every time I talk about you.
I'm going to start, follow me on Twitter at Chip Franklin, but also I'm going to start back with a 30-minute podcast once a week.
Oh, good.
We start tomorrow with Frank Figliuzzi, former assistant director of the FBI. And then we're gonna, it's gonna be on the Really American, which is a super PAC that I work with. But you can go. I will forward whatthefranklin.com, so you can always find it at just whatthefranklin.com, and that we'll do it there. It won't be as good as this show, of course.
Of course not. Of course not. I mean, both of our faces. I mean, who wouldn't want that, right?
Who wouldn't want that?
All right, my friend.
Yes. Yeah. Great show. Great stuff. Love listening to you, everybody.
We'll bring you on again soon. Everybody loves you every time I'm on, so we miss you. We'll get you back soon. Goodbye, my friend. The one and only Chip Franklin, my very good friend. Let's welcome Kim McAllister to the show. Kim, you're looking forward to this. Your connection is nice and clear.
I'll tell you. That iPhone shows every defect on your whole face. I don't want to use that ever again.
There's no defects. But as we're welcoming people, let's welcome our other friend and founding sponsor, taxman extraordinaire, Steve Moskowitz. Hello, my friend.
Hello, and Kim, there's absolutely no defects in any faces of you or Nikki. The viewers are happy to see you, I'm sure, with perfect faces.
Oh, I love it. And we love you, Steve. Speaking of defects, I'm sure some people are worried about defects on their tax returns, making mistakes.
I'll tell you a big defect. A big defect is what a lot of CPAs and other firms are telling their clients about ERC. ERC, and I see it over and over and over again. ERC is where the federal government is giving away. It's not a loan. They're giving away up to $26,000 for every employee an employer had during 2020 and 2021. And you say, that's terrific. How do I get the money? There's two tests. One test is real simple. It's a math test. Did your gross revenue go down by a certain amount? It is so quick and simple to do that test. Mm-hmm. And we start with that test too. If we can get you the money easily and simply, well, terrific. But where the problem is a lot of firms are only doing that test. They don't want to take the time and effort it works to do the other test, because you only need one of the two tests to qualify. They're just telling people they don't qualify. That's horrible. That's like a doctor that doesn't do a certain medical procedure, says there's nothing been done to help you, when that doctor can't help you. But if you went down the hall, there's another doctor that could, or went across the street, there's another doctor that could. So if you've been turned down for ERC because somebody said your gross revenue didn't go down enough, we want to talk to you about the other method. It's more work. That's okay. We're willing to do it. And what we have here is where a facts and circumstances test. And it's more complex, but we'll work with you. And if you qualify, and a lot of people do, let's get every dollar to which you're legally entitled.
You know, I love the fact that you make it clear that you're willing to put in the work. It surprised me. I was even just thinking about this the other day, Steve. You know, calling up maybe some of these other firms, right? And after hearing you speak, and how surprising it must be if they don't even talk about these things with people. And so I think it's so important that you make it clear to our viewers and our listeners that you're willing to put in the work, that you have a team of people behind you, and that you're not going to be scared off by a few more pieces of paper or a few more hours of work.
That's right. And, you know, I've spoken to some of those people privately. And like one CPA said to me recently, I said, well, why should you tell them about it? He said, yeah, it's just too much work for us. I said, but you should tell them it exists.
Yeah.
Give them the option, right?
I was listening to you earlier, Steve, talking about different ways to do things. And I've never thought really about math as art before, but I feel like maybe there's an art to what you do. Mm-hmm. That, you know, it's not when you think of math and you think of taxes, it's like you fill in the line and that is what it is. And there's nothing you can do to change it. But I think maybe there's a little more finesse to
yes,
it.
That's why even if somebody has been turned down on the math test, we do it again, because here's a common mistake. People are including the PPP funds they received when in fact they should exclude them. So for some of the clients, they even passed the math test when they gave the person the right numbers. But if you're just doing something quickly, how much was your total in this year, in this quarter, in that quarter? A lot of clients included PPP that should have been excluded. And when you take it out, it does qualify them.
Big difference, yeah.
It's a huge difference. Steve knows what he's talking about. That's the point. He's going to put in the work. He has a team of professionals with him.
That's right.
Give him a call. AAA Tax Deal. MoskowitzLLP.com. 888 Tax Deal or MoskowitzLLP.com.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Steve, so much. Bye-bye. Yeah, give him a call. Tell him the Nikki Medoro Show sent you. And I know that so many of you probably are wondering if you can afford him. It's kind of a boutique thing. If you have an issue, give him a call. Maybe he can help you. Maybe he can't, but I bet you dollars to know that he can. Okay, before we get to Kim's news, please smash that thumbs up button to show your support of this show. We absolutely love it. YouTube loves it. We love it. Of course, the super chat is live. If you want to throw some dollars our way, we really do appreciate it as well. You could do a super thanks, a super sticker. Mm-hmm. And coming up after Kim's news, I wanted to play you a couple more clips. Kim, you weren't here. Lying liar, George Santos was on with Piers Morgan.
Liars who lie.
I mean, he's literally the poster boy, but Piers Morgan gets him to really say it abundantly clear. So I'll play you a little bit of that sound. Bernie Sanders is out with a new book. I think the title, pardon me, I forget the exact title. It's like, it's okay to be angry about capitalism. But he was on with Face the Nation's Margaret Brennan. And he was also talking with Stephen Colbert. So he's making the rounds with this book about ageism and whether or not it's ageist to want a mental competency test or having some sort of age limit, which Kim, we already talked about. It's literally impossible. You need a constitutional amendment, and no way in hell is this country going to agree on a constitutional amendment about that. But I have a little bit of sound from him about that. And then Barbara Lee, again, I want to get your take on this, Kim, running throwing her hat in the ring for Senator Diane Feinstein's seat. I want to ask you what you think about that. And again, along the lines of ageism, is it fair for people to bring up Barbara Lee's age? Also, we'll get into later on this hour a bit of technology. Vanderbilt had to apologize because it used Chat GPT in a really heartless way. I know that there was like an author or a journalist that wrote a book using Chat GPT. It just seems this is accelerating these story and these headlines into a concerning area. We're learning more about Netflix cracking down on password sharing, account sharing. I still hate it. I really, really do. And then book banning. There's a meeting today in a Bay Area school district, very close to home, to consider banning books. So again, we'll talk about all of that and more. But first, some news with Kim.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
And this report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. So there are a pair of websites apparently not really doing what they're supposed to be doing. These link to be linked to California Senate candidates, but it's actually pointing visitors in another direction. So it's Barbara Lee for Senate.com and Katie Porter for Senate.com redirect visitors to Adam Schiff's website for his official bid for U.S.
I
Senate.
love it. What? That is so funny. Are you kidding?
Hey,
that is some trolling right there.
Well, they probably have all been figuring out like who's going to run. So whoever his web people are, maybe they grab those, the URLs quickly, those websites quickly before anyone else could.
That's kind of messed up, though. Don't you think? Like, these are your colleagues.
Barbara Lee for Senate.com and Katie Porter for Senate.com take you to Adam Schiff right there. Yeah.
Schiff boy. All right. Well,
the Times of San Diego reports both sites are links are registered to a company out of Denver called Domain Protection Services Incorporated. The Schiff campaign says it didn't buy those domains, and they're asking whoever owns them to stop forwarding them to Schiff's site.
Oh, okay. So he's not behind it.
Allegedly.
Somebody else is. Allegedly. You know what? I give you props. Gold star, even if it is your team, because although it's not very
creative.
Not in the good spirit of running, but all right. Okay.
The U.S. Department of Transportation is now calling on both Congress and the freight railroad industry to act immediately on safety measures following the train derailment in Ohio earlier this month. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg setting out a list of improvements, asking the rail industry, look, implement them on a voluntary basis. Don't wait until regulators force you to do it. Speaking of that train derailment, who's visiting there? Donald Trump. Going to the site of that train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio.
He's going to throw some paper towels at him and be like, you can handle it yourself. There you go.
Yeah, we know how great he is in a crisis. The former president plans to meet with local residents who are dealing with the aftermath of this month's derailment. The visit comes as Trump has already announced his candidacy for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination. Yeah, that's what they should shout. Where's my paper towels? I want my paper towels. Fentanyl continues to make its way into the United States despite billions of dollars spent on border security. Congressman Henry Cuellar saying the vast majority comes right through the ports of entry. The Texas Democrat says the drug cartels know only a tiny fraction of cars and trucks get scanned by custom agents, so they just push them right on through. There are 2 Tennessee lawmakers that want a federal investigation now into the culture of the Memphis Police Department. The request follows the beating death of Tyree Nichols, pictured here. State Representatives G.A. Hardaway and Joe Towns sending a letter to the Assistant Attorney General asking for an investigation into patterns and practices in that department. And NASA says it was a meteor. Here's a picture of it that exploded in the sky over South Texas last Wednesday night. The space rock traveling at about 27,000 miles per hour when it broke apart, shattered with the energy of 8 tons of TNT, causing a flash of light and a loud boom. So that's what it was in Texas. It was a meteor. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses. If you need help with your taxes, Steve Moskowitz is the one to call. He's at 888-TAX-DEAL and at moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Nikki Medoro Show.
All right, I'm back. All right. Thank you, Kim, for the news. Again, click that thumbs up button. Smash it, as the Mark Thompson Show loves to say. Okay, I have to play just one more clip. I'm laughing because if I don't laugh, then I might cry because the GOP is just ridiculous. I mean, and I know that it sounds partisan when I say this, but if you have someone, a newly elected lawmaker, you know, not that there's any excuse. I'm not saying if they were president of the United States, that makes it okay. But what allegiance does this party have to a newly elected lawmaker who hasn't done jack crap, right? But George Santos went on Piers Morgan and is admitting that he is a liar. Let me play you. I played one with Chip, but here he is again, George Santos talking with Piers Morgan about the lie that he even went to college.
The second claim was that on the campaign website that you graduated with a degree in economics and finance from Baruch College in 2000.
I'll save you I did not attain a college education. That was
no college
that
education.
Regrettably so is one of my biggest regrets in life.
So that was a lie.
Absolutely. And I admitted to it, and I've made peace with the fact that I made a bad choice in making that decision. It wasn't easy.
What's the simple explanation for why would you lie about something like that?
Expectation on society, the pressure, couldn't afford it, decided I wanted to run for office, although I had built a very credible business career. And I just didn't have that part of my biography that I could not give anything.
Did you not think that you'd be cool?
You know, I just went with it. I didn't think, I mean, if you're going to make up a lie, are you thinking at all? I just think it was a stupid decision in my part. Very stupid decision that I regret every day.
Well, great. Then what we want you to be is in charge. Why don't you represent everyone? Someone who makes stupid decisions. That's what we want.
Yeah. I mean, you have no college degree. You've admitted that you lie. You lied to people while on the campaign trail about who you are, what you stand for. If he had any integrity at all, he'd step down. But he doesn't. And why doesn't he? In my opinion, he doesn't step down because he doesn't have to. The GOP are not going to give up that seat. And so, like, fine. It's okay. It's okay that you're a lying liar. You're like the worst. And on one hand, okay, is this the most important thing? Yes and no. I mean, if a major political party doesn't care about lying, then it's not that hard to go and slide all the way to January 6th. If a political party doesn't care about lying, and yet that same party's leadership, i.e. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, hands over 41,000 hours of security tapes from January 6th to Fox News that's also admitted to lying, I mean, that's a problem in this country. And for people to be like, oh, you're just a liberal, you're just a Democrat, you're just going to rag on the GOP. What am I wrong about? Are my concerns not valid that one of the two major political parties, and now we can say politicians lie, but not only that they lie, they admit it, and there's no repercussion. At least Democrats, I mean, they cannibalize their own sometimes just so they're not viewed in the same vein as the GOP. That's the problem. There's no accountability from this party. And that's dangerous, in my opinion. And I don't know why it doesn't seem to get conservatives more upset, because I think that if this is your political party, you will be lumped in with these lying liars. You just will. Lori writes in a different part of the interview. He says he got away with it when he ran and lost 2 years before, so he figured he'd get away with it again. Yes, Lori, let me play you another soundbite of him because it just still blows my mind. Again, George Santos with Piers Morgan.
You never got a master's in business at New York University.
No, like I said, no.
Right. I mean, again, did you not think people would find this out?
You know, Piers, Not after
You're not running to be like a reality TV star.
No, I understand.
Right? You know, if you were going on Celebrity Apprentice, which I went on, right, it doesn't matter. You can embellish stuff about yourself. Nobody cares, right? But to run for Congress of the United States and to just tell blatant lies about even your academic record, I'm just struck, not necessarily that a politician would lie, but that you would think no one would find out.
Well, I'll humor you this. I ran in 2020 for the same exact seat for Congress, and I got away with it then, and I guess...
Right. Well, that's honest.
Doesn't even care.
So you thought, actually, they're not going to find out?
No, I didn't think so.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. George Santos, a member of the Republican Party.
He actually said, I got away with it.
I got away with it. So why would I stop?
To me, you knew what you were doing is wrong and did it anyway.
Oh, well, yes, he knew what he was. I don't think that there's any part of George Santos that wasn't fully aware of what he was doing. He just knew there was no accountability. And again, the message that this sends to those that come after you, or even those that are still in office. Like, look, I mean, he went on Piers Morgan. Look what he said. And it's crickets from his party. Crickets. Why wouldn't they keep lying to us? Why wouldn't they keep electing people that will just say or do whatever gets them elected? That's why I'm concerned. Is this the top issue? No, but it is a big problem.
Chris writes this: Joe Biden lied about his education. I don't know that lie, Chris.
Yeah, Chris, you're gonna have to educate us on that, on what lie that was.
That sounds Fox Newsy to me, like not true, like a lie in and of itself. But hey, if you have more information, please send me a link.
Along. I mean, what specifically did he lie about? What specifically did he lie about? That he went to college at all? Because George Santos did not even go to college, does not have a college education.
I agree with Lisa. A college degree isn't even a qualification. Why lie about it?
Right.
The thing is, he probably would have been elected, Santos,
right,
if he had not made up any of these lies. So, I mean, whether he lied or whether he didn't lie, he probably would have been elected. So why lie? Right?
Because you can. Because you can, it is this, you know, and maybe it's also part of our culture now, Kim, you know, to a lesser degree, look at social media. People lie about themselves all the time. Fake it till you make it. Catfishing people, right? I'm going to act like a completely different person online, and I'm going to swindle people out of money. The Tinder swindler. I mean, lying is becoming ingrained because there's no consequence unless it hits a certain level. That's the problem. And then we have our leaders, our political leaders that create laws and rules that we have to follow, that they don't even follow. And they're just bought out by big money. It's absolutely ridiculous. I want to play you another soundbite. This is of Bernie Sanders. He was on with Stephen Colbert. And you know, when we're talking about who's competent to be in office, and Nikki Haley is pointing to something like age as a barometer instead of honesty, which maybe we should start there. You know, Bernie Sanders, obviously, he's going to go for some laughs. Here he is talking about the whole ageist question.
She said she thinks that the presidency, she wants a competency test for all federal candidates over the age of 75. Which would include yourself, the former president, and the present president, many other people in the Senate and in the House. What do you make of that call?
Look, we have come, Stephen, a very long way in the last decades in fighting racism. Got a long way to go. Fighting sexism, fighting homophobia. And I think what she is saying is nothing more than old-fashioned ageism.
Yep.
And you know. To be honest, look, I know people who are 90 who are as sharp as a tack, and I know people who are 40, got to prod them a little bit. Sure. So I think the bottom line is voters judge people based on their competence, their confidence, their views. There are 1,000 factors. But to simply say that if somebody is 75 or older, they need some kind of test, I think that is just ageism and not acceptable.
And it would be impossible to actually create because the Constitution lays out what the qualifications are for president. You need a constitutional amendment.
Well, some of these guys don't worry about the Constitution too much.
That's right.
All right. So again, Barbara Lee, she's 76. Okay. Does anybody think she's too old? She seems very competent physically, mentally to run for office. Bernie Sanders on Face the Nation was asked about running for president, and he's old. He is. I mean, he admits it. I'm old. But he says he's not going to run if President Biden runs again. But yeah, I don't know what kind of test we need. I don't think there's anything wrong with having to be physically and mentally fit. I don't. But I don't think that necessarily totally correlates to age. As we could see with George Santos, who is not mentally there if he thinks that this is the way to get into office, which he succeeded at. So maybe he is smarter than the rest of us. But your vote again, Kim McAllister, Barbara Lee, you think she's going to be able to beat Adam Schiff or others?
Are you asking me which one I would endorse of all three, or just asking if I think it's a good
if
idea
you're ready to give an endorsement, I guess. But
I don't know if I'm ready. I honestly like all three candidates very much, and I don't know which one I like more. Barbara Lee, as I mentioned earlier, was the first person the only person who stood up and was against invading Iraq. If you remember that. She obviously has a strong backbone and moral character, and she's come on with us a lot on the radio, and I feel like everything I know about her, I like about her a lot. Okay. Adam Schiff, I also like. Katie Porter, how do you not like her with her whiteboard and all that? So I don't know. I don't know yet, but I'm glad that we have so many great choices.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. I mean, it's nice to have competent people who don't make a living lying running for office. So we'll see what happens. It's just one of those things where it's an important seat. I mean, Diane Feinstein, iconic senator. I don't really feel like gender should play too much of a role in this. Somebody had brought up earlier when we were talking about it, how many women we've had in it, how long it's been since we've had a man in that seat. I don't care.
Barbara Lee makes the point today that there is no African-American woman in the U.S. Senate.
Yeah, that's crazy to think of. That is crazy to think of. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, no African-American woman. The Senate on the Republican side only has one African-American total in Tim Scott. So not sure they quite beat us, but whatever. All right. So we'll see. I mean, as that race gets closer, we'll see who takes the lead. But at this point, I think arguably many people would say Adam Schiff is the one to unseat. But we'll see. All right. Let's switch gears just a little bit. We've talked a lot about Chat GPT. I think I heard in your news, Kim, I think you were the one that I got this from, that a journalist had written a book, a children's book using Chat GPT, correct?
Right. And if they can make a career out of it, that it turned out so well, they're going to keep doing it.
Okay, big ideas, people, if you want to write a book. I mean, can you really put your name on it? Do you have to put a ghostwriter thing like Chat GPT wrote this? Does there have to be some disclosure?
Well, isn't it lying if you put your own name and you didn't write the words?
Well, I asked Chat GPT to write it. It's my prompt, Kim McAllister, that led to that said book. No, I agree with you. I'm being sarcastic right there. But imagine writing and using Chat GPT to write a response to a tragedy. So as students at Vanderbilt University's Peabody College grappled with news of a deadly shooting at Michigan State University last week, a weird message was sent from the administration. The message did not refer to any Vanderbilt organizations or resources that students could contact for support. Instead, it, quote, described steps to ensure that we're doing our best to create a safe and inclusive environment for all. The first sentence read, one of the key ways to promote a culture of care on our campus is through building strong relationships with one another. Another sentence said, another important aspect of creating an inclusive environment is to promote a culture of respect and understanding. Apparently, there was a smaller line of text in parentheses at the bottom of the message that showed it had been written not by a person within the administration or with the security or anybody that knew that there was a shooting happening, but by Chat GPT. This was reported by the Vanderbilt Hustler student newspaper. And obviously, people are very upset. The dean said in a statement over the weekend that the message was a paraphrased version of a ChatGPT written draft, and that Vanderbilt would investigate the decision to write and send the message. They went on to say, I remain personally saddened by the loss of life and injuries at Michigan State. I'm also deeply troubled that a communication from my administration so missed the crucial need for personal connection and empathy during a time of tragedy. Here's my question. At what point did anybody think that using ChatGPT in this instance was a good idea? Why even have a draft? Can you not write a message without this use of technology?
Especially since it wasn't really even, was it not that long? It just seemed like a little blurb, right?
Like, even put it in there. Is this also just an example of how even more disconnected we are on a human level to each other, that we can't even come up with words to reach out to people within our school campus during a tragedy? You would think, well, one, you think that they would have something prepared for as common, unfortunately, as school shootings are.
Right.
But the fact that you think, let's get something in ChatGPT to send out to people is at the very least lazy, and at the most a demonstration of human emotion and connection with each other. It is so awful.
I think lazy, but also incredibly impersonal. I mean,
it's impersonal.
It kind of shows that you didn't take the time to really sit down and put your heart and your mind into what you wanted to communicate to people. And when you don't do that, I think you have an opportunity to make a connection there with people.
Right.
And the GPT chat, no matter what it writes, won't have that. There won't be that connection.
I think it's going to get better at it. I think it's going to get better at convincing you. Although, I mean, we've had those bots. As someone who's spent a lot of time with bots, I was literally on the phone with a bot today. My new driver's license is lost in the ether. Okay. It has not made it to my new address, even though I had it sent directly there. Didn't send it to my old address. Was supposed to come here. They don't even have my old address when I signed up. Apparently it's lost in the ether. And so I'm on the DMV chatbot. Miles was the chatbot's name. I love how they give it, I give a crap. I don't care what your name is. But finally I got to Art, the human being at the DMV. There was a woman at the DMV. I apologize, woman. I forgot your name, but Art at the post office I got to. Because I was like, I don't know what's going on. He was the sweetest guy. You know what Art did? He took my phone number and called me back.
Isn't that nice? Yeah.
You can make a ChatGPT or an online bot as knowledgeable as possible. There is nothing that can compare to someone hearing the emotion in your voice of desperation, whatever, and empathizing with you. Although I will say this, the one thing that bothers me when I talk to not telemarketers, but those customer service reps on the phone, and it never fails. If they'll answer the phone and they'll go, how is your day going?
Yeah.
And I always respond, fine. How about you? And they always say fine. And they always say the same. And I can say it with them. Thank you so much for asking. And it's it's written right in front of me. And thank you so much. It's not a real exchange, it's written on the script. And that's the only thing that really bothers me about it, is it can be so scripted. But no, the human connection is important. When I call with a problem, there is nothing that gives me more relief than knowing I'm speaking to a freaking human being.
Yeah.
Even if they're not helpful, even if they're not giving me the answer I want, at least I know that I'm not down this rabbit hole of chatbot speaking small keywords BS, right?
So it's infuriating. Yesterday, my internet service went out.
Right.
Remember. And it was out from about 2 minutes right before Mark's show ended, through your entire show, all through the evening, and into this morning, when I thought, I'm not going to be able to be on with you guys today at all. And then just a couple minutes before Mark's show, it came back on. But I had tried to call Comcast.
Right.
There is no person that you can speak to at Comcast.
No.
It's only somebody on the phone, this woman's voice, disembodied voice. saying, I'm sorry, there's no agent available to help you with this problem. Do you want to know the cause of the outage? Say yes or no. Do you want to have me text you the cause of the outage? Say yes or no. And that's it. That's all you have access to. I thought, as annoying as that was, it's kind of smart because they can't do anything. And all that's going to happen when people call is they're going to say, well, when? Well, why? Well, how is this? And you're charging me for the service I'm not getting. And so their agents, if they had any, would just be yelled at by people. Right?
True. Yeah. I mean,
it's not going to be a productive
problem.
Right. But they probably can't solve the problem if the company is installing new cables or whatever. You just have to have patience, even though it's taking too long and affecting your work in my case. But so on one hand, it's smart, but on the other hand, it leaves your users and customers very frustrated.
Absolutely.
You need that person to be able to go, you know what? You're right. I'm so sorry this happened to you. Let me give you a $20 credit for the days. Let me make this better for you. Let me let you walk away feeling like I've done at least some little thing to make your life better because I know we've caused this problem for you. But no, I get nothing.
You get nothing. They could take a page. I will say this, DoorDash, for instance, and I know that it's a very kind of generic type of thing, not your cable or internet going out. But yeah, I mean, it is a bot. I know it's a bot on their app. What went wrong with your order? You click. They know exactly what is part of your order. You click what's missing or what wasn't right. They offer you a credit or your money back that could take a couple of days. Boom, done. Like, I understand that. Now, as far as do you have Xfinity? Is that what it is?
It's the only one it's the only service for broadband internet available in my area. That's it. So, that's your only choice. So you can't even say, I'm going to cancel your service because you'll have nothing then.
Yeah, exactly. That's quite the monopoly they have in your neighborhood. I found, and I know that obviously they fixed your problem, but I was down the rabbit hole with a live chat bot. And then finally you just stay on there long enough. And they're like, do you want to connect to a live agent? And I'm like, yes, I want to. But it takes quite a while. And it shouldn't take so long. It really, really shouldn't. So yeah, I as far as writing children's books, do I have a problem with it? Yeah, kind of. I think that it's, again, using ChatGPT as a stand-in for human connection is wrong. And as a stand-in for, I mean, come on. How would you feel if one of your favorite children's books or one of your favorite books in general, you found out wasn't written by a person? I mean, would it matter to you that there wasn't any human behind it?
Does that make the message any less valuable? Right.
Right. Were they pulling from some human emotion to write that book? And I feel like, I would not like it as much if it was a ChatGPT thing versus, something else.
I don't want something fake. I don't want something that I could go to a search bar and type in and do myself.
Exactly.
I want some original thinking. I want to pay for original thinking, some original story, some original detail. I want a real person behind it.
I want you to know. I want to know that there's someone drawing from the human experience, not an algorithm. I don't want my data being input into a machine and then regurgitated out to me to pretend that they're a human when we both know that they're not. There is a value to the human experience that can never be replicated by a machine, no matter how smart they get. But the cycle needs to stop. If we continue to digest and accept ChatGPT material, right? If we're like, we understand, like you were talking, well, Comcast can't do anything about it. So we understand why they have, well, no. I mean, on one hand, that's not going to change, the outsourcing of human jobs to machines it's been happening for decades. But, if we continue to accept it, they're just going to continue to give it to us. And unless we stop it, and I would go as far as, stop the self-checkouts, even though I've done it myself, right? I mean, all of these moments in which we have chosen machine over human being tells the machine of society what we want because we continue to use it. All right. Speaking of machines, use that mouse that's right there or your finger, which is the human machine, and tap that thumbs up button, please. Smash it with your iron rod. Click that thumbs up button. We absolutely love it. Also, become a Medorable. Join our Patreon. You can become a monthly subscriber for any amount you want to. And it keeps literally the lights on, keeps Kim and myself employed and continue doing the show. We do need financial support for the show, or just it can't keep going. We can't.
As a matter of fact, if you are looking to sponsor a part of our show, if you're looking to sponsor a newscast, please email the Nikki Medoro Show at gmail.com, and we would love to put you on the list of sponsors. Maybe you have a business that you would like to sponsor. Maybe you just want to sponsor it. Maybe you want to hear me say this newscast is sponsored by Karen Cooper. Whatever.
Yeah, there you go, Karen Cooper. Called out.
Give us a message.
You know, I sent it out to my Patreon. So if you're one of my Medorables, you have it. And if you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, you saw the flyer of sponsorships, and we can get really creative with these things. Yeah. We can obviously do them, beginning of the show, end of the show, during the news. But also if you have a business, if you're trying to raise your brand of your business, maybe you're a smaller business like our business is, and you just want something. And one of the important points that I want to make before we move on is YouTube is forever. I mean, well, as long as YouTube lasts, of course, which I don't think it's going away. So even if you, let's say, do a weekly or a monthly sponsorship, you can continue to reconstitute that. We would give you, obviously, your show and where you're on, and you can share that with your other businesses. So it's a kind of a win-win type of thing where obviously we get the financial benefit of a sponsorship, but you in turn also get to use that in whatever way you want to for your brand or your local business. So the Nikki Medoro Show at gmail.com. I've already gotten a few bites, but we want to get more because we definitely want to continue to do this show.
We want to keep the conversation going, right?
We definitely want to keep the conversation going. Okay, so Kim's going to do some news. When we come back, I want to talk about schools. I want to talk about Stanford raising tuition and blaming it on inflation. I don't like that. Yeah. So Stanford is raising tuition and blaming it on inflation. I call BS. Also, book banning. The discussion is happening tonight, I guess, at a school board meeting of a Bay Area school district. You tell me. I mean, is this a sign of things to come, or is this kind of a one-off? That and so much more. Click that thumbs up button. We'll talk more right after Kim's news.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
And this report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Let's get right to the top story. I almost broke in with this, but I thought we could wait to find out more about the grand jury in the former President Trump's Georgia election case, now recommending multiple indictments. This is new. It's according to the New York Times. The forewoman of the jury telling the Times it is not a short list. She didn't say who specifically the special grand jury recommended for indictment. When asked whether jurors had recommended indicting former President Trump, the forewoman said, "You won't be surprised." The bulk of the report regarding all the alleged actions to overturn the 2020 election remains sealed for now, and we will bring you more information as this story develops. The EPA is ordering Norfolk Southern to pay for the cleanup associated with this toxic train derailment that happened earlier this month in East Palestine, Ohio. Administrator Michael Reagan promising to hold the rail company accountable for the cleanup of all contamination there. Testing of the town's air and water within the evacuation zone will also continue. That was a commitment underscored by the Ohio governor, Mark DeWine, and his broader promise not to leave East Palestine behind. He stated that he drank water from a home in the area, while adding that testing would remain in place in order to win back the trust and ease the trauma of the residents there. And looks like that is what is happening. The Biden administration is out with a new immigration policy seeking to limit asylum. The protection would not be available to those who did not apply before entering Mexico. In order to seek asylum, migrants must schedule a time to arrive at a port of entry. There would be exceptions for some victims of trafficking. The proposal would have to go through normal rulemaking processes that would allow for public comment. The United States will be hosting NATO members next year in order to mark the 75th anniversary of the alliance. In a speech today from Warsaw, Poland, President Biden called it the strongest defense alliance in the history of the world. He said the commitment of the United States to NATO and what's known as Article 5 is rock solid. The alliance, which was formed after World War II, has been key in supporting Ukraine as Russia wages war on that country. You were talking, Nikki, earlier about libraries and book bannings. Well, get a load of this picture. Whew. There's a viral video appearing to have consequences for one teacher in Florida's Duval County. Mandarin middle school substitute teacher Brian Covey has been fired after posting a video online last month showing what you see here, the empty bookshelves in his school's library. The video got millions of views, but the district says it was a misrepresentation and it violated their social media and cell phone policies. I guess what? You're not allowed to take pictures of what's really happening there? I don't know. Republican Governor Ron DeSantis also said the video was a fake narrative. The 39-year-old Covey says he was fired last week. He tells the Washington Post he was never told not to record videos in the library, and he never heard anything until the governor, in Covey's words, kind of blew it up.
Wait, so what did he say when he posted the video?
Here, I don't know because I haven't seen the video. I've only seen photos of the video, and this is one such picture from the video. But I believe he was talking about how they're pulling books off the shelves, and here's the empty shelves in the school's library from banned books.
I mean, yeah, I would just want a little bit more about what he was alleging. I mean, that's I understand banning books is one thing. It doesn't seem like these kids have books, which would be a whole different story to cover.
How many are you going to ban?
Well, yeah, and what books are the kids allowed to read? Where are the books that the kids are allowed to read? Ooh, a lot of questions regarding that.
You have to delve deeper into this story, I think. Yeah. So apparently balloons may be banned in Laguna Beach. They're not so healthy when they pop.
No, the Mylar ones, not those ones. Not those ones.
All
the
of
Mylar.
them, even
Every
the
single
rubber.
balloon? Really?
Yeah, all the balloons. According to the city council's meeting agenda for today, the ordinance would prohibit the sale, distribution, and use of balloons anywhere in the city of Laguna Beach.
Good luck. I mean, do they know that balloons fly? I mean,
well, yeah.
Well, so you can have balloons in a neighboring area that can blow into Lagoon. So how do you know that it's...
You don't, but I guess maybe it's a process of cutting things, cutting down on the litter and debris that end up on your beaches and in your town.
I mean, I get it. I mean, yeah. And I'm not knocking. I understand how people that just release balloons, and I know it's pretty, and you're like, oh, it's going to heaven. No, it's not. It's going to deflate and end up on the ground.
It's going to pop, and the rubber's going to end up as garbage, trash, and debris in your ocean or wherever.
Yeah. Latex rubber does a number on an animal's digestive system. Yeah. So while on one hand, everyone loves, right? My daughter's birthday is in a couple days. Probably going to get balloons, but you know what we're not going to do?
Set them free.
Release them into the air. Yeah. I cut them open and I throw them in the garbage can. I mean,
she looks really happy though with frolicking on the beach there.
That's an Instagram picture. She's gonna let go of that crap. That's like the 50th version of the picture she probably took.
Meta's new verified subscription service could pull in close to 12 million subscribers this year. Bank of America Research says the service catered toward influencers and businesses. It could be a good option to help increase engagement and visibility. The service will start about $12 a month, could generate $1.7 billion in revenue in 2024. It's being tested right now in Australia and in New Zealand.
That really bothers me. I mean, as somebody that's, we have this show and on one hand, I understand it's a business. They can charge whatever they want for the business. On the other hand, we're trying to market this show and grow it by using social media, which in turn collects our data, which is, like you were mentioning yesterday, Kim, kind of the exchange that we didn't really have a hand in creating, but we've obviously agreed to by using the platform. Now, charging us $12 a month, it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you don't have a lot of when your margins are extremely thin, $12 a month, that adds up to use something that's still skimming all my data. Like, what am I getting for this besides you supposedly bumping me up, because I know with Twitter, ever since they started that whole, verification thing, my reach, I know, I mean, what I see and who sees me has changed completely. It just absolutely
for the worse.
has. Absolutely
Wow.
for the worse. Yeah.
Harry says Meta will get a subscription from me when they pry my cold, dead fingers from my mouse.
I know, but if you depend on social media like we do, it hurts and it's worrisome. It really is.
SF Tesla says, overpriced, no free movies, no sport event tickets. What do you pay $16 a month for?
Yeah. Well, exposure. And and if they're, and then again, if people are paying for it, then there's going to be tiers probably, and you're just going to continue to pay and pay and pay. And at that point, just hire a publicist to do it for you, I guess. I don't know.
All right, last story, Wallet Hub ranking the hardest working cities in America. And San Francisco, California is at the top of the list.
Wow, really? Okay.
That's right. It's followed by Anchorage, Alaska, and Irving, Texas, of all places. The personal finance site looked at things like hours in the average work week and employment rate in each city. Virginia Beach, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. round out the top 5. Burlington, Vermont, though, unfortunately ranked dead last. But our city by the bay, numero uno, baby. That's right.
Hardworking, underpaid. Gosh, yeah. Love it.
I'm using it as an excuse to show the Golden Gate Bridge. There you go.
There you go.
This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. If you need help with your taxes, especially because you're working so hard in San Francisco, you give Steve a call. Please, oh please. He's really, really good. 888-TAX-DEAL or MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Nikki Medoro Show.
All right, thanks for joining us for the second half of the Nikki Medoro Show live on YouTube, starting at noon Pacific. Click the thumbs up button one more time. I'm going to remind you guys, and I do want to give some thank yous because we did have some people donating to our super chat, which is live. Thank you so much to Kevin Hobbs. Started us off with $22.33, 2233.
I love how he does the double numbers. Kevin, I noticed this about you. That's very cool.
I really, really do like it. And again, you guys can donate to our super chat in any amount you want to. James Buchanan, a $5 super sticker. I really appreciate you. The Lady Beatrice with a $5 donation and a comment regarding George Santos, the lying liar. She writes, I wish someone would call for Santos to be recalled. He's getting away with too many lies. I agree. And then Walter coming in with a $5 donation. Thank you. And aloha to you, my friend.
Walter.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. So yeah, you can donate there. PayPal, the Nikki Medoro Show at gmail.com is the email address to put up there. Also, some merchandise is for sale. Brainstorming some new merchandise. What do you guys want to see? Let me know. You can email me. Go to the shop, thenikkimedoroshop.com. And we always appreciate any way you support the show. Okay. So speaking about ways of spending money, Stanford is raising its tuition and it is blaming, I think, the scapegoat for any business that's raising the price of their goods, which is, of course, inflation. So 7%. It's being called the largest tuition increase in at least a decade, a 7% hike. It will push. Now, this blows my mind, Kim McAllister, as we both have young children heading off to college in way too short of years. Undergraduate tuition will be pushed to nearly $62,000 a year. $62,000. And the total cost of attendance.
You're not going to Stanford.
Total cost of attendance, including room and board, $82,000 in the next. No. So very basically, Stanford's increase is the biggest among major local universities. It's more than twice the 3% fall increase of Santa Clara University. Santa Clara, by the way, about $59,000. University of California, Cal, raising tuition by nearly 5%. Now, this seems reasonable when you're doling out dollars, almost $14,000 a year. God, Stanford's expensive. I was reading this article in the Mercury News, and I always love the comments because I always want to know if anybody else is as flabbergasted as I am. And the person's like, unless you're a football player or a legacy, you're not getting into Stanford anyway. So don't even worry about it.
It's a school for the elite.
It's awful. It is awful. And I don't know how they get away with it. Now, I think to myself, inflation. Why would that lead to a tuition hike? Why? I mean, it doesn't seem to make very much sense.
Are you paying teachers more because it costs them more to live?
I mean, that's a great question. Okay. So Emily Wadwani is a senior director at Fitch Ratings and was interviewed by the Mercury News. She specializes in the higher education sector. Says this is a sizable increase for Stanford in particular, looking historically at what they've done year after year. Now, of course, they point to the inflation, the rising cost of groceries and gas. But Wadwani says increases in cost for fuel and utilities, labor, and various other items are what is leading to the higher tuition. I still call BS. I still think that they could have done it. They could have cut elsewhere instead of raising tuition. And I will maintain that always. I think that there is, when you want to talk about cutting the fat and the pork, they're like, oh, well, if you want to entice the best of the best to teach at Stanford, okay, you can still entice the best of the best and say, this is how much we're paying you. We're still Stanford University. Stanford's increase this fall is twice the 3.5% rate of annual tuition hikes imposed from 2013 through 2018. Santa Clara University did not raise tuition in 2020. They did in 2021 at 4% and then 3% in 2022. That's what Santa Clara University did. Now, some people are saying, well, Stanford's really, though, generous to families who can get in. The university also raised its income threshold for fully covering attendance costs. So families that earn less than $100,000 a year would pay nothing, big goose egg, for tuition, room, and board, up from $75,000. Those earning less than $150,000 a year would not pay for tuition, which was up from $125,000, and then the rest would be awarded on a sliding basis.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. You guys know how I feel about these kind of big brand colleges. I'm not knocking Stanford University. I'm not saying they're not a great university. What I am saying is the ROI on it may not be there. $60-something thousand a year. Are you high? Lori says, Stanford started giving free tuition to families making $60K or under a few years ago, maybe under 100. Yeah, but you have to still get in, right? And I still don't think it's worth it. I mean, maybe that's just my opinion. I'm sure I know people that went to Stanford. I'm sure they don't regret it if you can get in and you could do it. But Perry Joe, Jim Bob writes, how about a cheaper school like Chico State, class of 96? That's me, baby. Absolutely. I don't know. College, and I know that it's an experience, and I know it's connections, and I know it's all those things. But if you have to pay, now let's put aside those that get the financial aid. All right, let's just do that. If you're paying $60K a year, more than 82 room and board and everything else, I mean, and you have to front that yourself, you're starting life with huge amounts of debt.
Yeah.
Heather writes, in my college is $81,000 a year now. I was so lucky to have grown up poor as dirt since I qualified for financial aid. Would never been able to afford it if my family was middle class. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. Either your family is very rich and you're able to afford to go there, or very poor and qualify for a scholarship. That's about the only way.
Lori says, I always recommend that anyone I know. There. It's okay. I read Lori's. I read the other one. I always recommend that anyone I know to go to community college for lower division and transfer. I did that. Transfer to Harvard.
Whoa, Lori.
You, Lori. Absolutely.
Lori, fancy. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, and that's the way to do it. Look, this is what I don't understand. If you live in California and your kid is going to go and has a dream college, and you can, Why not let them go to a community college to get the 2 years free if that community college offers the free tuition for 2 years? Like, why not? I mean, it doesn't matter what you're really going into. You have to do your GE, right? You have to do it. Everybody has to do it. You got to take that English 1A and 1B. You know what I mean? Like, you have to do these things.
Yeah.
So why not get it for free or significantly less money and then pay the buku bucks? You want to pay $80K a year for the final 2 years or 3 years, depending. Why not? It just seems, when we talk about what we spend our money on, right? That's what you should be spending your money on. It's so crazy. John says, I started out at Foothill College, just recently got into San Jose State. Congratulations, John. I'm a fellow Spartan, my man. Yes, I went to San Jose State. It was my third college, but no one ever asks about the other two unless I tell them. So don't even worry about it. The diploma I got hanging up, San Jose State. And that's all anybody cares about. Yeah. And unless you go to like Yale, and I'm not knocking you, Lori, but Harvard, where it's like, oh my God, you went to Harvard? Nobody asks. Yeah. Nobody cares. Can you do the job? Can you get it done? Those sorts of things. Oh, and she was 31 at the time. I'm loving you, Lori, more and more. Yeah. It is. It is. If you can make it happen and you're not going into significant debt, more power to you. Absolutely. Yeah. I just want to throw this in before we get to the book banning story real quick, though. Did you see this story? Speaking about, if you have the money to buy something versus an education, Claude Arthur Stewart Hamrick. Claude Arthur Stewart Hamrick. Okay. For decades, raked in a ton of money during the tech boom. All right. He was a patent lawyer. Yeah.
Good job, Claude.
He was a patent lawyer. He hobnobbed apparently with Steve Wozniak, right? He served on San Jose's Rotary Club, ran a golf club. He also had a car with a vanity license plate. And since his name was Claude Arthur Stewart Hamrick, the license plate said cash on it. He is now selling said license plate, the vanity, you can get it now because he's giving it up. He is selling it. How much? Do you know the story already?
No.
How much do you think that he is selling his vanity license plate for? He wants to sell.
I didn't know you could do that. I thought you just turn it back into the state DMV and that, if you then the next person that requested gets it. No.
So apparently this offer for this huge dollar amount is part of a new, largely untested market of people looking to sell the rights to custom plates in California. This is already in place in Delaware, which has a long tradition of wealthy people affixing low numbered plates to their cars. So apparently the rights to Delaware's number 6 plate, just to put this in perspective, Delaware's number 6 plate sold for $675,000 back in 2008.
Oh, wow.
Texas also runs online auctions for license plate, where the phrase 12th man, referring to student fans of Texas A&M football, sold for $115,000.
Of all the things to spend your money on.
So how much do you think that he is selling his cash, CASH license plate for? Anybody want to guess? Anybody? Give me a number, Kim McAllister. Let's start out the bidding. How much would you bid for a vanity license plate, a California vanity license plate?
Cash. It's in California.
Cash. That's it. Let me take a picture. Hold on. Let me show this picture.
I'm gonna say he's gonna start the bidding at $500,000, but I bet it gets up closer to $1 million.
All right. 70. Ron Cook says $75,000. Okay. And you said what? You said $500,000? $500,000 $1,000 or $500?
$500,000.
$500,000. All right. Jam says $1 million. Vilma says $1. You're doing the Price is Right kind of thing. This isn't a game show, Vilma. How about just $100? Nope. This man, let me share my screen so you can see it. This man is selling the license plate that says cash for a cool $2 million.
Really? Really? For a license plate?
For a license plate it says cash, Kim. I mean, look at that guy. He looks pretty happy. Maybe it'll bring you some good luck. 1.5. Louis was the closest at 1.5. $2 million. And says it with a straight face.
Like, why? Why?
Well, because you can, obviously. Yeah. So Claude Arthur, Stuart Hamrick, he has the license plate on the back of his Cadillac SUV, and it says cash. I don't think it would be worth it. I mean, as a collectible, perhaps. Now, Michael Modecki, apparently there's a business that sells these. Michael Modecki has spent thousands of dollars amassing the rights to license plates that are very, bound to go viral. So let's see. He has Go Viral, Epic Win, Betting among his collection. He's helping Hamrick advertise his cash plate. Yeah, if you have the money and you don't know what else to spend it on.
Does it mean that that Claude maybe has fallen on hard times and needs the money?
I think Claude's just getting up there in age. You know what I mean? It's like, why not strike while the iron is hot? So Hamrick left Silicon Valley years ago to live closer to his grandchildren in North Carolina, but he's hoping for one last payday on the back of his years spent in the Bay Area. His daughter-in-law is helping with the license plate campaign. They just need to find someone with a love all things cash and will shell out $2 million. Would you ever get a vanity license plate, Kim?
No, I don't. I mean, I find them amusing when I see them on the road, but I don't want my car to stand out. I'm not a bumper sticker vanity license plate kind of person.
Right.
I don't feel a need to advertise who I am to everyone on the road.
That's smart. See, I'm the opposite, and then I get in trouble in traffic, and then I'm like, shoot, they know my car now.
Like, I don't want you to know anything about me if I'm driving down the road. I just want to be anonymous in my little car going on my merry way. I don't want to advertise my politics or my, that I have for,
Oh, I don't do those. Yeah, I don't do any of that. I mean, I have a couple of stickers. Yeah. I have one little like, I can't remember. I can't believe I'm brain farting on the character's name. Anyways, I have a kind of a character from a cartoon on my car. I've got another sticker that has to do with a podcast that I listen to. I have a couple of stickers on my car, nothing that has my kid's name or how many people are in my family or anything like that. But
or who's on the honor roll or whatever else.
Oh no. Yeah. I definitely, although I would love to have one of those stickers. It's like my kid beat up your kid's honor roll student. Just kidding. But I always find those to be really, really funny. Like, I don't care about your kid being on the honor roll. Yeah. Karen asks a great question. What car do you put a $2 million license plate on? Escalade is what he put it on. That's at least his last car that he has it on. You
Pay
don't
for somebody to go to Stanford for a few years with all that money,
It's funny. What if he gets his license plate stolen? I guess you could just get it printed again. But I think there's something to be said with it being the one that, because it looks like it looks like the original. You know what I mean?
That's
like
blue and yellow. Yeah.
That's the blue and yellow one. So you definitely want to keep that one. Okay. Let's talk about book banning. Let's do Kim's news first. Okay. But I want to tease it. Okay. So there is a Bay Area school district that is going to discuss today the idea of banning books. This is the San Ramon Valley Unified School District. They are going to discuss tonight during the meeting on the process of banning specific books. Let me know in the comments. Do you think any books ever should be banned? And is there anything wrong with just opening up the conversation? So apparently, according to this article, a review of posts and comments in the two most popular San Ramon Unified Facebook parent groups suggests a large turnout is expected with people on both sides. Some people consider some of these books pornographic. Others suggested reading specific passages from books aloud. They're trying to shock people. Mm-hmm. And do you think that this is really going to work? Specifically when books have to talk about LGBTQ issues, which I feel like a lot of this has to do with. And this is my question I'm going to pose to you again in the comments. Is there a real concern here that these books are a little inappropriate for kids, let's just say in elementary or even middle school? Or is this type of reaction similar? I keep thinking of talking about sex in general, or drugs or suicide, that if you talk about it, then the kids are going to be interested in it and do it. Or is it vice versa, that the kids are already thinking about it, talking about it, being exposed to it? And so we need a book to kind of explain it. Let me know in the chat. And, what would you say if you were going to go? Or even if anybody lives in San Ramon, would you go to a meeting like this? What is the answer to people who want to ban specific books? Let me know in the chat. We'll talk about that. Also, it is Fat Tuesday today. Anybody ever gone to Mardi Gras? And do any of you participate in Lent? And if you had to give up something, what would you give up for 40 days and 40 nights? That's all coming up after Kim's News.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
And this report is sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. We'll start with this story that just came up. The Democratic governors from around the country now are forming what's being called the Reproductive Freedom Alliance. Numerous states involved, including, of course, California, Colorado, Illinois, Maryland, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. The governors say it's being formed as they are committed to protecting and expanding reproductive freedom. The formation comes after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade last year and left the abortion issue up to states. President Zelensky is today thanking the United States of America for rallying international support for Ukraine in its fight against Russia. In a tweet following President Biden's speech on the conflict from Poland, Zelensky repeated Biden's remarks that the capital city of Kyiv stands strong and free nearly a year into the invasion. He said Ukraine and its allies are headed toward a common victory that must occur this year. The Supreme Court is considering a lawsuit that could change internet law as we know it. This high court heard arguments in the case Gonzalez versus Google. The case challenges a controversial law known as Section 230, which shields websites from being responsible for harmful user-generated content. Governor Gretchen Whitmer says the gunman in Michigan State University is committed a senseless act of violence. She attended Ariel Anderson's service at a church in Detroit, where she said the 19-year-old dreamed of becoming a surgeon. Anderson was one of 3 students killed in that shooting on February 13th. A $100 million wrongful death suit is being filed some 58 years after the assassination of Malcolm X. Attorney Ben Crump said the civil rights leader's family is suing the city of New York, the state of New York, the FBI, and the CIA. Malcolm X was fatally shot while speaking at the Audubon Ballroom in the Washington Heights neighborhood of Manhattan. And a Florida bill seeks to make it illegal for a dog to sit on a driver's lap or stick its head out the window of a moving vehicle.
What? Good luck. What are you going to do? Take it the dog? I mean, geez, Louise.
In addition to providing detailed restrictions on how dogs can be transported, this law seeks to ban the declawing of cats and any animal testing as well. Should it pass, the bill would go into effect October 1st. And again, that's in Florida. Maybe they're feeling like that's not safe for dogs. So it's kind of an animal safety bill.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's safe for dogs or people. I know when I ride with Nugget, I have a harness on him. And then I have a seatbelt thing that attaches to the harness, because there's been times where if he didn't have it, and he always wants to be, right in my face on the, the center console thing. If I brake too suddenly, he can fall
Fly forward. Yeah.
So I don't want him to be injured. So that's good. But I'll see some of these people, and believe me, Nuggets tried, sitting on their lap, like almost taking over the wheel. No. If there is an accident, can you imagine if an airbag goes off and your dog is in your lap? Yeah. I mean, think about how that's a bomb going off. And now you have an animal on your lap. It's not safe. So I don't agree with many things, but I think that that's actually a good idea. Because animals just need to be restrained so they don't hurt themselves.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to read it. Dogs in a lap I get. I've had issues as to dogs putting their heads out of the window is crazy. My dog always puts his head out of the rear window. Yeah, my dog does too. I want to get Nugget, Kim, the goggles, that they wear, because his hair sometimes gets too long and I'll watch him in my side view mirror and it's like he's just trying to finagle the wind so he could see better. But yeah.
Well, the thing is, it seems so like taking away their joy, because I know when my dog puts her head out the window, like she is loving it.
Yes.
And so I agree that maybe safety is an issue, but there should be a way where they can still have that joy and not, I mean, and it's
a really big fan in your car.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's funny.
Florida, bunch of joy kills out there. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. If you need help with your taxes, Steve Moskowitz is available and ready to be on your side at 888-TAX-DEAL and at moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on the Nikki Medoro Show.
Thank you, Kim. All right, so we don't have too much time, but I do want to get into this book banning meeting. Of course, we'll see what happens with it. So Gender Queer apparently is the book that is being targeted or has raised concern among some parents in the San Ramon Valley Unified School District. I have not read this book. Okay, full disclosure, but it's called Gender Queer, a memoir by Maya Kababi. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it. Maya Kababi. And they want to ban it from the school library.
Right.
So now apparently there has been interest in this book after a video circulated online with some sort of claim, and it's been unfounded, according to the Mercury News, that a San Ramon Valley High School teacher disciplined a student with a 0 grade after the student refused to read Gender Queer. I'm going to call BS on that just first off. I whatever. But anyways, that was what started apparently this whole entire thing. Mm-hmm. The school has not been able to verify that claim. Apparently the school told the Mercury News no complaint was filed. During a January school board meeting, the board decided to discuss the district's policy on challenged books at its next meeting, which I guess is what this meeting is going to be about. Now, a review of posts and comments say again that some parents believe these books contain pornographic images and are inappropriate. I don't know how many parents have actually read Gender Queer or other challenging books. And I don't want to make a statement to assume that they haven't read any. But my question is, if your child reads a Gender Queer book, mm-hmm. what do you think the worry truly is?
How old's the child reading the book?
Now, let me see. I'm trying to find. That's a great question. I'm trying to find that age.
I was reading what this book was about as kind of you were going through it.
Right.
And this is a memoir, and it recounts Kobabi's journey from adolescence to adulthood and the author's exploration of gender identity and sexuality, ultimately identifying as being outside of the gender binary. So maybe there's some sex stuff in it. Maybe, as you're talking about, and that would be normal if you're talking about your journey from adolescence to adulthood, talking about how to find your way through how you identify, what gender, sexual stuff, and who you're attracted to and who you're having crushes on, and all these things that are a part of all of our stories as we're growing up, then it would make sense to me that that would be included in there.
Now, I will say in this article from the Mercury News, they keep mentioning San Ramon Valley High School. Apparently, they have one copy of Gender Queer that was placed in the library in 2020. It's only been checked out twice. It's still available at many Bay Area school libraries, including high schools in Oakland and Berkeley. But again, I feel like and I don't know how to say this without insulting people, but do you really think that if your child reads a book that all of a sudden, and I feel like some people may agree with say yes, Do you think that your child's going to want to change their gender identity because they read genderqueer? Because that's the only thing I can point to on why parents can be up in arms about something like this. Because we know that kids starting at 9, 10, 11 have questions about their body. We talk about sexuality. We talk about puberty. It's not as if they're not wrestling with these questions already. So it's not as if we can ignore it. It's happening. But do you think that simply allowing a book to be available, not necessarily that it's required reading, just that it's available in a school library, is somehow going to change your child's identity?
Apparently, the author says they started drawing black and white cartoons about their experience with gender identity and putting them on Instagram. That became the basis for this book, Genderqueer. So it is a graphic book, like a graphic novel kind of book, where it's a series of cartoons.
Right.
So there's going to be images in this, but the author also says they intended this book and marketed it for older teens in the older realm and young adults. So,
and that's my thing. It's like, we're not talking. How do I say this? I know that there's age appropriate books, right? You want to introduce books and read books that a child can fully understand. And if you're introducing confusing concepts, then you're just going to confuse the kid at the very least, and possibly make them, I don't want to say emotionally unstable, but just not fully understanding what the hell you're talking about, right? I don't think that's what's going on here. I think, in my opinion, I believe that parents who are so up in arms about a book such as Genderqueer are scared that their child is questioning their own gender identity.
Or scared that if the idea is even raised, that there will somehow be some type of questioning going on. Like, oh, see, if I introduce this idea, then that will make them gender, fluid, or that will make them question.
And my question to you is, okay, is it wrong to analyze who you are? Is it wrong to consider your entire identity? And I think that that's what, and I don't want to be ageist here, okay? But I think that that might be what the older generation has a hard time wrapping their mind around. Back in their day, there were boys and there were girls, even though there were so many examples of people on the gender spectrum.
But you didn't question it.
You didn't, oh, that's just a celebrity, or that's a singer, or that's, it was, you were a boy, you were a girl, it was cut and dry, and that was that. Even though we know throughout history it's not that, it was just ignored. And so now this generation, and I'm talking about our kids' age, Kim, not us. We're even kind of older, right?
Yeah.
Our kids don't see the world that way because, and it's not because of books. It's because they're listening to each other. Our generation has created space, right? We have tried to at least create space to not only have the dialogue about LGBTQ issues, identity, and whatnot, but the fact that people are not being vilified necessarily or as quickly or shunned as much as they have in past generations. You create the space, you allow people to talk, they realize things about themselves, and then what is the next step? It's either acceptance or it's not. And I just feel like to be fearful is because you're afraid of the reaction of society that does not want to create that space or that healthy environment for a person. And so you want to shield your child from the pain of being shunned by their community.
There's so many good comments. Before we get to them, I just want to say, I feel like right now kids are questioning. Kids that wouldn't have questioned when we were going to school, are questioning. But I think that's okay. And I think even if you have a kid that's questioning, they'll come out the other side of it feeling like either they were who they were born as or not. And that's got to be okay. I loved Vilma's comment. It was up for a while. A book won't change who you really are.
Exactly.
And then Susan says, I'm sure many LGBTQ plus people grew up reading about heterosexual couples. It didn't seem to have any influence on who they turned out to be, right?
Exactly. And that's the funniest. I love when people make that comment, because I always say the same thing. What do you have to read or watch or listen to change who you are? right? I mean, I can listen to and read all the books I want to. I am who I am inside and out. I know who I am.
Yeah. Oh, things are falling in my room. Joe Blow says this is dangerous.
What's dangerous?
Maybe introducing ideas to kids
or banning books.
Or banning books. I'm not sure what you mean is dangerous, but clarify. Maybe we'll get back to that. Flo writes, Nikki, sorry to say this, but in these book banning cases, the people raising the issues really rarely read the book. They are most likely going on hearsay and unreasonable fears.
I agree with you, Flo, to an extent, but I just don't want to say for sure because, again, those are assumptions that are being made. I also believe it could be a tiny percentage, it could be half, it could be more than that, of people have read the book and are scared. I think this is based in fear. If my child reads this, they're gonna question their gender identity. They might become homosexual. There are. And I'm not calling them valid, but there are fears that people have that if you introduce these topics, that it will fundamentally change who their child is, not realizing that if they are who they are, that is it. And they're allowed to question. It's part of growing.
At the same time, though, I think there's age-appropriate books.
Of course,
if even the author says, I meant it for older teens, then put it in the high school library. Don't put it in the elementary school library. I think that's appropriate. I mean, there are movies, there are things that I don't let my kids watch because I don't feel like their brains are old enough to really make sense of it yet. And then they get to a point and, it's okay. That's kind of what it's okay for them. But I
just wonder, going back to what Flo says, I wonder how many, and I'm a reader, I read easy novels, kind of stupid novels, and I read harder novels. And I just wonder how many parents are really paying attention to all of the books their kids read. Because if you have a reader in your house, and Kim, you know this, I mean, they can pick up anything that sounds interesting to them. And you're like, oh, great, they're reading. But who knows? There might be a sex scene in that. But just because it's not talking about gender identity, you don't give a crap about it. I mean, let's tone down, the puritanical reaction to stuff and just realize that if you care about what your child is reading, did you read that book yourself? And if you didn't, that answers my question.
Kim says the parents are afraid their teens will find out that transgendered are real. Well,
that they're part of it. Well, I think kids, I would be especially, and I bring this up because it is the Bay Area. I'd be hard pressed to find a kid in the Bay Area. And I don't care how conservative your parents are or the religious household you may have been raised in. You know about the transgender community. I think you know about gender fluidity. If you go to school with kids, all right.
A couple good texts. Murphy says, I have that book. It's appropriate for teens. And then Catherine says, San Ramon Valley Unified School District parent here. Many people coming to the school board meetings and speaking on this issue are older and don't even have kids in the district.
That would piss me off to no end.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't have a say in your school district because obviously if you have a home there and you're part of the community, you care. But if you are not directly impacted, i.e., you don't have a kid in the damn school that's going to pick up the book and you're going to have to deal with the background on it, like my kid who's sneaking around in the back. We could totally see you there, dude. Vacation people. If you don't have a kid in the school, then why the heck are you going to these meetings except to kind of flood the conversation with more comments? You should have some skin in the game, I feel like, when you go to these meetings.
I'm not sure. Maybe John is right. It seems like with more people talking about it and more options available and the ideas changing, maybe, but I'd like to see proof of what he's saying. He writes, according to actual psychology studies done by the American Psychologist Association, there are higher rates now of teen girls wanting to change their gender.
I mean, and I think that should be explored. I'm just going to say this, and this is not the same thing. Okay. And I'm not trying to say it, but I could understand a bit, even if you're not just questioning or examining the question of not being a woman, right? Anymore, questioning my gender. Being a woman in today's society is hard, right? So, the trauma that can come with being a young girl in this world is hard. I'm not saying that's going to lead someone to be transgender or that they are transgender, but what I am saying is, what's the harm in examining it? And whose business is it? Now, we can have the debate about going the medical route. I do believe there should be, not that the government should have any say at all. I'm not going that far. But I do think that, medical interventions should be slowly introduced to children simply because they are still examining, questioning, figuring out who they are, and let them lead the way and at an appropriate rate with the parent and the doctor and what have you.
I'm with Murphy completely. Kids who read will find and share books. I read Judy Blume's Forever and Wifey. Yes, so did I, Murphy. Way before I should have. I survived. We'll all survive if we have access to knowledge of the human experience.
Absolutely.
I have to say, though, this whole withholding of ideas, though, is something I've really been struggling with. And I talked to you about it, Nikki, with this play that my daughter is in.
Are we going to share the story?
Well, yeah, she got the part of this, the girl who gets made fun of for her weight.
Okay.
The play is Heather's, and the character's name is Martha Dunstock or Martha Dump Truck, right?
Right.
And so for now 4 hours a day, 3 days a week, my daughter will go to play practice, and she will immerse herself in the part of this girl who gets bullied for her weight and eventually puts a sign around her neck and walks into traffic to kill herself.
Yeah.
So you have weight issues with a young girl. My daughter's 13. You have, she'll be thinking about weight issues now because she's got this character. Not that she wasn't before, but and she's got suicidal ideation issues, right, with this character as well. So we haven't really talked a lot about suicide because I never really, you want them to be kids as long as possible and not think about those things.
Right.
But now she's 13. So now it's time to kind of fill her in on things that happen in the world, fortunate and unfortunate and the like. But do I want her to be in that world and have these ideas constantly, in her face all the time? Would I rather, kind of sweep that under the rug and not talk about it yet? Or do I want to open the discussion and have her face those ideas head on? So it's
and what did you decide?
Well, she says she wants to be in the play.
Yeah.
And she's 13 now. And so I looked at it as the same kind of, and I don't know if you were the one that said this to me or not, but not talking about sex or teen pregnancy doesn't keep girls from not getting pregnant too early.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
It's the knowledge and the education and the thinking about things and the discussing about things and having it be out in the open and learning together and sharing ideas that could be more helpful than not. But I'm telling you, I really struggled with this. Like, do I want to risk her having some type of mental issue by getting, this particular part in this particular play? This play is pretty dark. It's got a lot of suicide and
question,
meanness,
and we've been playing devil's advocate because we've been talking about this for a few days. And let me ask you this: if she had gotten the role of Heather's, and if anybody, I'm a huge Heather's movie, Winona Ryder, Christian Slater fan. I watched it a million times, so I was kind of introing Kim to the movie because she's never seen it.
Yeah.
And the way I'm describing it was awful. But let me ask you this, Kim. Let's say that your daughter had gotten a role of a Heather, a mean girl. Would you have had the same concerns, even though for 3 days a week, 4 hours a day, she would have been one of the meanest people in the world? Would you have had the same concern?
I think I wouldn't have, because she's had some issues at school where she was made fun of in the way this character is being made fun of. And so for her, particularly her psychology, her mental place, I don't want her to keep being battered with this weight thing when she doesn't even really have a weight issue at all.
Right.
So for me, I feel like it's something I worry about. I don't worry about her being a mean girl. I know she's kind. I know I've done that.
But wouldn't change her to be there for 3 hours a day or 4 hours a day, 3 days a week.
No.
Okay, but you do worry that it would change something within her, even though you just admitted she doesn't have it.
Yeah, but I worry that because she, especially at this age, girls with eating disorders and kind of coming into their grown-up girl bodies, their woman bodies. And it's a very sensitive time where these things are happening and they're seeing themselves in different ways. And will it distort the way she views herself?
Yeah.
I worry about it. I just have concerns.
I hear you. I mean, can we update about the letter that you sent? Did you ever get a response to the email?
Oh, about the letter I sent to the director of the play?
Yeah.
I just said that she would accept the part, and I detailed my worries, and they haven't responded. So
they have not responded. Okay. If they do, I want an update on that
because I wanted them to be aware. Like, I have these concerns, so while she's at play practice, keep an eye out. What are you seeing on your end?
Exactly. I like that. John wrote in, just talking about kids questioning everything. He says, my daughter's been questioning her sexuality the whole time she's been going through puberty. She's not a reader at all. It's out there. Books might make it easier on kids, but God forbid that happen. Exactly. Like I don't care if you're learning how to build a table or questioning your sexuality, when you're looking for answers, when you're looking for insight, when you're looking for people that perhaps can understand, the library is a treasure to have. And so banning books, just to kind of put a final point on it, it's counterproductive, because I would rather have my child, I'd rather have my child come to me first. I would love to go with my child to the library so we could both educate ourselves. Yeah. But minus those things, minus that support, the kid will find the answers. The internet exists, and it may not be in the place that you want. It may not be in the place that is actually age appropriate. Stop being so worried about books and worry about not being engaged enough with your kid that they're even looking for those answers. Yeah, Eric writes, if you're worried about your kids are going to see explicit drawings in an age where the internet exists, you're a little detached from reality. Exactly. I mean, the internet is there. Vilma, I was a victim of a mean girl, and I still think about the things she said to me. Thank God there wasn't an internet. I know.
It's crazy, those mean things said to you over your life, and everyone has something someone said or pointed out about you or something.
Absolutely.
They're kind of internalized with your negative voice. And that's the thing in the moments of self-doubt that always comes back to you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. So, I really, my heart goes out to all kids. It's hard being a kid nowadays, right? It is so hard to navigate everything. On one hand, it's great that the information is out there. On the other hand, navigating that information is hard. Yeah. And SF Tesla wrote, you could jam everything known to man in the school library, but you can't force or make or hope that pupils will read books. Unless it's porn, then they beat the door down. Yeah, I know. All right. Well, we didn't get to everything I wanted to, so tomorrow's going to have a ton of stuff. It is Fat Tuesday. Do you say Happy Fat Tuesday? I think so. Have you ever been to New Orleans, Kim?
No.
Yeah, I went years and years and years ago before I had children.
Did you show your boobs?
Oh hell yeah! I went in Rome, baby. I went to Mardi Gras. We were there for Fat Tuesday. Those are my younger days, Kim McAllister. Those are definitely my younger days. But yeah, happy Fat Tuesday. Let me know. Tomorrow is the beginning of Lent for all of you that participate in Lent. Are you giving up anything? Are you giving up candy, food? I don't know, the internet, social media? Are you doing any of those things? You guys, we could talk about that more tomorrow. Andreas with a $10 donation. We love you. The super chat is live and it is up during the replay. And Andreas is one of our biggest supporters. Another $20 from Andreas as well. You are so, oh my goodness. Andreas, very busy. We'll email you. Love you with another $10 donation, and love Mark, Kim, and Nikki with another $10 donation. Andreas, let's connect. Again, we do have sponsorship opportunities available. I know some of you have been reaching out. The Nikki Medoro Show at gmail.com. Let me know how we can work together. And it could be, well, we could think outside the box with all of this. So let's just come up to something financially beneficial to both of us as a way to keep this show going, because it is completely crowdsourced. PayPal donations, the Nikki Medoro Show at gmail.com, same email. I love you all. Tomorrow we'll get into LinkedIn, naming the cities where people are getting laid off. And you know, of course, what happens, Kim, when a lot of people are getting laid off, they're looking for jobs. Ton of job scams happening. So we'll go over those. Again, I love you all. Click the thumbs up button. It helps us out. It helps YouTube. Share our show with a bunch of strangers on the internet, whether it's in the porn den or the whatever den.
Oh, wow. What den? Where are you? What den are you going to?
We accept you all. All right. Love you. Talk tomorrow. Bye.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. You're proud. Like a beautiful so pleasant. You're also the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.
Wow. Okay.